What is up, Coug fans? Welcome back to another Couch GM and Coug Fan live edition. This episode is going to be pre-recorded but playing live on YouTube. Make sure to leave your thoughts in the comments below on anything Cougar athletics that you'd like us to cover, any questions, opinions, and of course, make sure to check out cougfan.com. Subscribe to their premium membership. That's where all of the best and latest information for WC Cougar athletics will live. And if you or someone you know is thinking of buying, selling, or refinancing on the West Coast, Washington, Oregon, California, Idaho, or Arizona, make sure to reach out to myself. I'm a mortgage broker full-time when I'm not making sports videos. It's my goal to assist as many Coug fans and athletes get into the home of their dreams. And Dylan, what do you do?
In my day job, I'm a solar consultant. If you're looking to get solar for the future, lock in a rate, learn anything about how solar works, please reach out to me. That's my day job. Nothing better than figuring out your energy bill for the next 20 to 25 years and locking in a rate. So please reach out to me if you have any questions or concerns regarding solar.
And with that, let's get into it. So the first item on the agenda today is, of course, Coug basketball. They got bounced by San Francisco in the WCC tournament. There was also the women's tournament that was going on at the same time. What are your takeaways from the tournament, from the season as a whole?
Yeah, obviously, I think everybody feels the same way. A bit of a bitter taste left, in Coug fans' mouths. Just a remarkable start without Cedric Howard. You go 13-3 through your first 16 games, big wins in the non-conference over Nevada, Bradley, who made the Missouri Valley final and lost to a 30-win Drake team. You beat Boise State up at their place. Northern Iowa in Las Vegas. And then the wheels just kind of fell off in the middle of January up until late February. I think they were 2-8 during a 10-game stretch. And there were times where it looked like they quit in games in the second half. And I thought they came out really, really hot in the first game of the tournament against LMU. They win 74-57. The offense is clicking. And then you run into San Francisco, who you split the season series with. You had that little escapade in the handshake line after one of the games in Pullman that kind of got Gerlison mad at Riley. So you had the rubber match, and WSU, I got to give them credit. They looked like they were trying to fight in that game. They lose Dane Erikstrup in the first half. But the rebounding really told the story. 49 total rebounds for San Francisco, 25 for the Cougs. But it was the offensive glass that killed Washington State. San Francisco had 19 offensive rebounds. The Cougs only had 5. And when you take a look at that, that's a really tough way to win a basketball game when you continuously are giving San Francisco second chances, third chances on the offensive end. And 19 offensive rebounds. The Cougs had 25 total. I mean, they were just 6 back of their total from the offensive glass. So it was a bit of a horror show there. I thought Lawan Watts had a fantastic game. He pretty much played the entire second half with 4 fouls. He finished his game with 20 points, 9 for 13 from the field. Ethan Price in his final game in his collegiate career really kind of kept the Cougs in that game for 30-35 minutes until the wheels fell off at the end. 26 points, 6 rebounds, 9 for 15 from the field, 3 for 6 from deep. And, they got it to a point in that second half where it was a 2-point deficit. And then to get to that 2-point deficit, Nate Calmese had 2 or 3 quick buckets, and it's like the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde show with Nate Calmese all season. It was a Nate Calmese experience. They get it to 2, and then they have an opportunity to tie the game, and Calmese can't even control the ball, and it dribbles off his knee out of balance, and that was it. I mean, that was the closest the Cougs would get for the rest of the game, but the big thing is after the game. Okay, you get the reporters in there, Jamie, Greg Woods, the whole 9 yards. You start asking questions. Okay, are you going to come back? Lawan Watts said, "I'm for sure a Coug." Yeah, it's real easy to say that after the end of the game. You're still in the locker room with all your teammates, your coach, this and that, and you haven't had some booster over at Nebraska or Michigan State or Gonzaga or whatever it may be going, "Hey, well, we got a $300,000 check waiting for you over here." So Lawan Watts is going to be the most important piece in terms of retaining, because in my opinion, Cedric Howard, there's a story by the Spokesman Review, which essentially talked to Coward after a practice before the West Coast Conference tournament, and he's sounding like he's gonna test NBA waters and try and go that route. I think he's still got an opportunity to be a second round pick, because you might have a similar thing with Jalen Wells, where Jalen Wells tested the NBA waters, kind of a down year last year, and you never know who you're going to impress out there in Las Vegas and whatnot. So in terms of these pre-draft workouts, you can have a guy come in that might not be on the board for a lot of NBA prognosticators, and then all of a sudden you see him in person, you're like, okay, well, this guy's shooting up. So I don't expect to see Cedric Coward back. Jamie Vinnick of CougFan.com got answers from Richard Favors, Tomas Thrasterson, and Andy Okafor, who have all said that they're going to come back. So if you can get those three, you got a big man. You got Favors, who was shooting the lights out of the basketball over the last couple months of the season. It's defensively where I think he's got a lot left to pick up in his game going forward. And then Thrasterson, who, I mean, he looks like an absolute steal from Iceland. This is going to be a guy that you're going to expect more offense next season. He shot the 3-point, a 38 to 42% clip, not a lot of high volume there, but he's a guy that was getting his feet wet this year. And I guess, the other names that are low on the totem pole, Case Why Not, a guard, Idaho Gatorade Player of the Year, had some time this year, had a few different injuries he worked through. And Marcus Wilson, point guard. So in terms of, kind of the main guys, talking about Nate Calmese, I wouldn't be surprised if David Riley, not the baseball player. If David Riley is trying to find another ball handler, because we didn't have enough this year. Wilson goes down, all you had was Calmese. So now I'm looking to see David Riley go out and bring in a guy that's not going to turn the ball over at the clip that Calmese turned the ball over. So, the next 3-4 months, I'm going to be plugged in, trying to figure out where guys are going. It's something that, I felt like I had a bit of a pulse on last offseason. I broke the Lawan Watts transfer. So looking forward to seeing how the puzzle is going to, articulate over the next couple months.
Now, the basketball fans throughout the season, I know from yourself and other people were talking about extending Riley. I know that there was a graphic that came out about an extension. Is he actually extended, or was that just like a post and delete type thing?
Yeah, no, he was extended. Okay. That original post was deleted, but then put back up like 30 minutes later. And I don't think there's really much money involved. Maybe more for the assistant coach salary pool, because you take a look at this season, and you're like, okay, well, you know what? Mr. Riley, I think it's time to go out and maybe bring in a guy like Jim Shaw that Kyle Smith had, that was his defensive coach. Essentially need to go out and get a DC, because whatever was going on this year wasn't working in terms of the defensive side of things. So I found a pretty interesting stat that I had no part in creating. It was Wazoo Jobu. Shout out Jobu. We love you. He tweets, he goes, Riley needs to find ball handlers and rebounders, or we're going to be bad. WSU ranked 338 out of 364 teams in turning the ball over, and 325 out of 364 in defensive rebounding. And that just goes, key example is their last game, 19 offensive rebounds to 5 with San Francisco. So now they finished about where they were projected in the conference. 5th place preseason. They finished 6th. The blowouts, they said a lot about this team, especially the Santa Clara blowout at home at the end of the year. You can't really rely on anybody here to stay in this environment of NIL and basketball. I mean, we saw it last year, obviously a coaching change, but you only had 1 returning player in Isaiah Watts, 2 if you count Parker Garrett's, who redshirt last season. And then obviously transferring to the women's side of things, they started their tournament a day later. They started on Sunday. They got the opening round win against Pacific. And then they faced Portland, who they were 0-2 against in the semifinal matchup in the regular season. They lost that one. And when you kind of take a look, they were 0-5 against Gonzaga and Portland, who were 1-2. And they beat Oregon State both times they played, the home and the away this season. In Oregon State, shout out to the Beavers. I mean, they could not have lost any more from their team going back to last season to this year, they got absolutely gutted after they left the Pac-12 in that initial year in the West Coast Conference. And shout out to the coaching staff and the program over there for getting the automatic bid and winning the West Coast Conference Tournament Championship their first year. So at least the Pac-2 got it on the women's side of things as Gonzaga, the men's team, they look like they're rolling into March Madness. 28 consecutive championship appearances in the West Coast Conference Final. That's just an insane run, and goes to show you little old Gonzaga with Mark Few up there is just getting things done. I'm 31 years old. I mean, pretty much my entire lifetime they've been in the championship of the West Coast Conference Finals. So got to get to a point where we're investing into these programs so that we can keep up with the San Diego States, the Gonzagas, and the Colorado States that are coming into this conference basketball-wise.
Now, getting into some football talk, there was the WCU Pro Day that happened the other day. There was actually 7 players from Washington State, 7 players from Eastern Washington that participated in the combine. The 7 guys from WCU that participated in the Pro Day were safety Tanner Moku, who was listed at 5'10 and a half, 207. He ran the fastest 40 for any Cougar on Friday at a 4.53. He also had the fastest 3-cone shuttle drill at 6.97. He was also tallest in the vertical with a 39 4/8 inches jump. For the full breakdown of the Pro Day from Friday, make sure to check out CougFan.com. They've got all of the details. Also, of course, the biggest name that everyone is watching right now, Kyle Williams did not participate in the Pro Day. He was listed as being there, did not participate. But then we got Esa Pole. He is the guy to look for, and he actually has upwards of 30 visits right now with NFL teams. He says that he's going to be jumping on the plane a lot. He's not a huge fan of flying, but he's going to be able to do a lot of it in the coming month.
He's going to rack up those airline miles over the next month and a half. I'll tell you that. Get some points on the card.
And when asked about who he's talking to, some of the names that he listed: Seattle, Green Bay, Kansas City. A bunch of teams have reached out and asked me to come talk. I've got some 30 visits throughout March. So that's exciting. I get to fly around even more. I hate planes, but we'll find a way. I think my first one is probably going to be either Green Bay or New York. So make sure to be on the lookout for updates coming on his visits as they happen.
Yeah, and one of those teams that kind of jumps out at you is the Kansas City Chiefs, who have had, quite a few scouts in attendance at WSU Pro Days, WSU games, obviously, over the last couple of years. Take a look at Jalen Watson and Jaden Hicks already over there. So you see a lot of times teams, have certain scouts in certain areas, and, they just might be a little bit more golden in the Palouse.
And Pole was officially measured at 6'5", 323 on the Coug website. He's listed at 6'7", 319, so maybe a little shorter than how the Cougs had listed him, but still a massive guy. And he was doing his training actually in Knoxville, Tennessee, preparing for the draft. And Pole said, "I'm from Cali, but I'm a New Orleans fan. I grew up watching Drew Brees and Jimmy Graham and being a fan of Sean Payton. Maybe I'm a true Louisiana guy. I don't know. I haven't been there yet. He'll probably be there in the next month." The NFL draft is scheduled for Thursday, April 24th through Saturday, April 26th. So make sure to be on the lookout for that. We've got basically a month and a half until that happens. But another big story that came out, Dylan, you sent this to me earlier, is the story coming out on UNLV. Imagine our reaction as Coug fans. Like, we had all the drama that was happening this past year with the coach, with the ADs, with the regents and everything. Get this, UNLV athletic director told the Board of Regents last week that his department can only cover the costs of the first 2 years of football coach Dan Mullen's 5-year contract. At a meeting Friday in Henderson, Harper told Regents that the University Athletics Department is $26 million to $31 million in debt. He was then asked by a regent how he plans to pay for Mullen's $17.5 million contract. And this article is from reviewjournal.com that you could check out for this full breakdown. But the question was, because you have $3.5 million for 5 years, you're running nearly $30 million in the red. What is the plan to pay the coach, and how is it going to get done? Harper said he hopes to raise money through donations and increase revenue from football games to pay Mullen, hired in December to replace Barry Odom for the final 3 years of his contract. What would your reaction be if Washington State said, "We just signed this new head coach, Jimmy Rogers, but we can only pay for like 2 years of this 5-year deal that we just signed him to"? What would your reaction be?
That would be nuts. I mean, honestly, it's basically telling me UNLV doesn't expect to have Mullen here longer than 2 years. They expect him to come in here, hit the ground running, and then probably, win 9, 10 games and then get another job. And then you get another contract buyout. And I know Barry Odom was a $3 million buyout from Purdue. So they're getting paid $1.5 million over the next 2 seasons a year in that Barry Odom buyout. But a lot of this also sounds like some positioning between the regents as well as UNLV and their athletic department. They're expected to get anywhere from 19 to 24 million if everything clears out the way the Mountain West thinks it's going to, with some of these penalties that they're imposing on the Mountain West schools leaving. That money comes from exit fees and poaching fees. But right now there's mediation going on between the Pac-12 and the Mountain West. So the hope is litigation continues, this mediation starts, and then you can kind of get these poaching fees, maybe even the exit fees down, where it's not the full amount of money that the Mountain West Conference is expecting. So obviously there's some smoke building over at UNLV. And who's to say, if these poaching fees and exit fees go down, that they stay in the Mountain West? I mean, if it is still viable for them to come to the Pac-12, but we're going to have to sit here and wait.
Well, yeah, with this financial position, each university, when they leave the conference, they're expected to pay the departure fee. But the Pac-12 is going to help pay those for the schools that are leaving, I assume. But that makes you think how this would affect UNLV potentially being able to leave their conference and come to the Pac-12, because they are one of the top targets that the Pac-12 is after. So we'll have to wait and see how that affects everything.
Yeah, I mean, and that deficit too. I mean, that's Mountain West. The Mountain West knew what they were doing in terms of giving the bag to UNLV and Air Force to keep them in the conference, because at the time they absolutely had to. They would have lost their 8th team if either one of them went. So yeah, I mean, it's who knows? We're seeing, hey, it was supposed to hear terms of the media share and how much per year by late March. Now you're seeing maybe that's going to drag into April. Obviously, we've seen timelines with like President Schultz and everything leading up to the mountain or the Pac-10, the departing Pac-10, and obviously WSU and OSU. There was some deadlines that were pushed back. So it's natural.
So make sure to stay locked into that story as it progresses. And then getting into WSU baseball, they had their first home series against Seattle U this past weekend. They went 2-1 against Seattle U, 6-4, 9-4, and then lost that final game of the series 10-12. They then unfortunately had a short turnaround until they went to head to number 8 Oregon State. They lost 15-1 game 1, and then game 2, which was today, they lost 4-3. It's tough when you have, especially college baseball, to where you have short depth, or your top tier depth, isn't very deep. And then you have your Friday starter, your Saturday guy, your Sunday guy. And then you roll into a series against number 8 Oregon State 2 days later, to where you basically have to throw out bullpen games left and right. So a tough situation. Again, right now, Washington State is now 5-12 overall. They are on a 3-game losing streak, 2-1 at home, 0-7 away, and 3-4 at a neutral site.
Yeah, I mean, again, 5-12. Now you're going to go into the Mountain West Conference. Oregon State looks like one of the 10 best teams in college baseball. So you like what you see today. I mean, a 3-1 lead, though, and you blow it late. Kind of been the story of the season against some of the better teams. Arkansas, first game of the year. You had the UCLA game where you're up 6-1 and lose that. So, like I said, 2 or 3 games go a different way. You're probably looking at yourself 8-9, 9-8 going into the Mountain West, and they're going to open up at Air Force a 3-game road series. So that begins Friday. So it's going to be interesting to see how they stack up against the Mountain West, and what that league's going to look like this year. Obviously, you take a look at a team like Fresno State. That's probably the early bird leader for taking this conference this year.
Yeah, we'll see if the Cougs can bounce back from this not so great start. But short episode today. It is WSU spring break, so we weren't able to get any athletes on the podcast this week. We could be expected to continue in the following weeks. I'll be at spring training this entire next week. If you're going to be down in Arizona by chance, hit me up, DM me, come say hey. would be happy to meet some of you guys.
We got one last thing. We forgot about the Palouse Golf Tournament, April
That's
9th
right.
through the 11th with the spring game.
So it is the annual Cougs First QB Classic, which is going to kick off the big April football weekend in Pullman, which culminates with the spring game on that Saturday, which is April 12th. So April 11th and 12th. So April 11th is going to be the Coug Classic golf tournament. Dylan and myself will be standing at the Cougar Collective tee box hole. Hopefully, we'll get some good content with Drew Bledsoe. Maybe we'll see if Minshew makes an appearance, or Luke Falk, some of these other guys, and get some good
We
content.
do
And then
know Marcus Trufant. Marcus Trufant's going to be there, so that's a big
okay.
time name that we know is going to be ready to hit the links at Palouse Ridge.
And then that Saturday in Pullman at Gisa Stadium will be the spring game to culminate. So hopefully you can get out there, meet some guys, come check out the spring game. Love to see you there.
Yeah, love to meet you guys. Come up to us if you guys are at the spring game. You guys check us out, and we'd love to say hi.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. Make sure to like and subscribe. Follow us across social medias. Of course, subscribe to CougFan.com for more content like this, and we'll see you in the next one.
Go Cougs.